As we indicated previously, Collage has the opportunity of covering gray 100% for you. It would be important to make a correct diagnosis of the amount of gray that is present in the hair and whether or not we would assess that hair as being resistant gray hair. Within the Collage line, we have 3 bases of natural colors that we can choose to add into our formulation to address gray coverage. They are as follows. We can choose to use for a cool end result on gray coverage our natural base Stroke 00. For a slightly warmer gray coverage end result, we can choose to use Stroke 06. If you remember our levels and tones, 6 in tone indicates chestnut, so it would indicate on Stroke 06 that 25%, as 6 is the secondary tone, would be chestnut based, allowing us to have slight warmth in the gray coverage end result. For resistant gray hair, we can choose to use the Stroke 00 Plus base. This is available in levels 4 through 9, and it will allow us beautiful 100% gray coverage end results on gray hair that tends to be a bit more resistant. It is important that we do an accurate assessment of the amounts of gray so that we would be able to add into our final formula the amount of neutrals needed to do gray coverage at 100%. So if the client has 25% gray, we are going to incorporate the same amount of one of the 3 natural bases to cover the gray. So let's do a for instance. If the client is 25% gray and we are going to use 60 milliliters of color in total, we are indicating that 1/4 of that 60 milliliters, so 1/4 of 60 milliliters would be 15 milliliters. 15 milliliters of that final formula must be dedicated to covering the gray. We can choose to use any one of the 3 bases that cover gray, depending on the hair's resistance or depending on what we want our end result to be, slightly warmer or slightly cooler. Another example. If the client is 50% gray, we are going to dedicate half of our final formula to covering the gray. An example. If we were using 60 milliliters of color in total, we understand that half of that, or 30 milliliters, must be dedicated to covering the gray. We can choose to use any one of the 3 natural bases that cover gray at a 30 milliliter ratio, and then the remaining 30 milliliters can be our target shade or a target tone. If the client is 75% gray, we are going to use the same amount, or 3/4 of the final formula would be dedicated to covering the gray. So 3/4 of 60 milliliters would be 45 milliliters on a 60 milliliter formulation, would be dedicated to one of the 3 natural bases that cover gray, and the remaining 15 milliliters can be our target shade. If the client is 100% gray, there is no pigmented hair in the head, we are going to use 1 tube of one of the 3 natural bases that we choose to use to cover gray, and 1/4 of a tube of our desired tone. On the bottom of the screen, you will see there is an indication of correct formulation technique. A correct formulation technique would allow you, the colorist, to make an assessment of the client's natural level. You would use the Collage swatch book. You would go to the Stroke 00 series to be able to make this assessment. The level will indicate the lightness or darkness of the client's natural color. Once we have assessed the client's natural level, then we are going to make a determination of what we want their desired level to be. We need to know where we are starting, and then we need to know where we are going. We then need to make a determination on the desired tone of that level. We need to make an accurate assessment of the percentage of gray within the hair, And from all of that information, we need to come up with a final formula. We also have to be mindful of utilizing the correct application technique given the situation. Is it a virgin application? Is it a touch-up application? In the Collage line, if we are going to make a client 2 or more levels darker, we must revert to pre-pigmentation of the hair in order to ensure correct results. The pre-pigmentation chart that you see in front of you has been specifically formulated for use within the Collage cream line. If we are going to pre-pigmentize the hair, the objective is to put back the underlying pigments that have been removed in making the hair lighter. Pre-pigmentation and underlying pigment kind of go hand in hand. We are going to put warm tones back into the hair before we create a final color formula to allow that final color formula to have something to hold on to latch onto. There is an approximative table in front of you of what to choose to use to pre-pigmentize within the Collage line. What's important to notate is the level that you are going to, not necessarily the level you are starting at. So let's make an example. If the client in front of you is an artificial level 9, and you would like to take that client back down to a level 6, you are going to look at the number 6 on the approximative table. You are going to notate that we are going to take that client back to a dark blonde, as 6 in our leveling system is dark blonde. We're going to remember that the underlying pigment at level 6 is red-orange. So that's going to give us a little indicator of some of what we need to put back into the hair before creating a final level 6 color formulation. Next to that, if you read across the number 6 line, you are going to see that it gives you 2 choices to use to pre-pigmentize within Collage. It gives you a choice of 734 or 764. 734 we will always pre-pigmentize lighter than our end target level. 734 is going to have a tonality of 75% gold and 25% copper, as opposed to 764, which has a tonality of chestnut copper. The 734 is the warmer of the 2 choices. If at starting at a level 9 and going down to a level 6, we know that we have removed the majority of the underlying pigment in taking that client to a level 9. So I would choose to use the color fill formulation that is warmer. The 2 rows of numbers in front of you, the row to the left is slightly warmer and the row to the right is slightly cooler. If you were not starting at such a high level, for example, if your client was an artificial level 7 and you were taking them back down to a level 5, you could certainly choose to use, if you look at 5 and go straight across, you could certainly choose to use the number on the right, the 665, because much of the underlying pigment is still retained in the hair. You also might choose to use the column on the right when you want a cooler end color final result. So you do have some choices in pre-pigmentation within the Collage line. In the application technique for repigmentation, also called filling, we are going to apply the Collage color that we would choose directly from the tube. So we're going to put it from the tube into a bowl, and with a bowl and brush we are going to apply it on towel dried hair. We only need to apply the pre-pigmentation formulation to the parts of the hair that were previously lightened. If that was the whole head, then we would apply it to the whole head. If that were only sections of the hair, possibly in a foiling technique, then we only need to apply to the area that was pre-lightened. We are going to process the pre-pigmentation color on the hair. It is not mixed with anything for 10 minutes. We are going to comb out lightly without irritating the scalp any excess pre-colorization, pre-pigmentation color that is in the hair with a large tooth comb. We are then going to apply our final color formula directly over the hair that was pre-pigmentized. We are going to use a 10 volume developer for our final color formula, and we are going to process that appropriately for Collage color at 30 minutes. When that timing is over, then and only then are we going to take the client to the back bar. We are going to rinse the color from the hair, and we are going to shampoo and condition with our Technia Color Stay shampoo.